Hello. Today's going to be a bit of a chill stream. We're going to start working out let's delete this one. We're going to start working out a plan for the game. Okay? So, I'm going to throw all of the GameFAQs stuff into here. And we'll make a folder called GTD for getting things done. Delete. And I'm wondering if we can find community plugin. Hello, decent. How's it going? There is a text-based GTD system for Obsidian. Aggregates all outstanding to-dos. When you vault, list them as a single view. We'll do that. Currency system for the indie game. Nice. So is this something some other guys you know are working on? Or like a game idea that you're working out? I have an idea for a totally different game besides the Hexagon, besides this. That I guess would be, I don't even know how to describe it. Like gameplay wise. I guess it would be like a, I don't know. Like if you were to imagine a Pokemon game where instead of collecting Pokemon, you were actually collecting video games. And that it was themed around a road trip. And it was presented in a 16-bit style, and the games you were collecting were shown in less than 16-bit, like Game Boy almost. Oh, nice. Is there a place I can go and look at it, or are they streaming anything, or? Two game devs, art and code, and a third member is helping flesh out the story of the game. Nice. So I believe to do a checkbox, go like this. No. Is it just the box? No. The space in the box? No. Is it that? There we go. Now, if I were to go up here, no headings found. Do I do to do? Oh, it's not on. Inbox. There we go. Scheduled someday maybe. So how do you do someday maybe? Hashtag someday. Market to do someday maybe by adding the tag someday. Okay. All right. I've got you on the our first goal is going public with our first playable and Patreon. Nice. It's an uphill battle, but we're slowly making progress. I've got you on the maybe team, but it's impossible to get a whole team on one call to make a vote. Huh. What engine or what's Godot. Nice. Outline. So let's look up can I do a table with just this? No. That's what makes it a table. What makes it a table? That's what makes it a table. So what makes it cells? So if I said things doing done and then I did some checkboxes here, so I went like this. And then I did something else like this. Does it not like it if I excuse me. Now it recognizes it as a yeah, I'm sort of experimenting with something right now, just seeing if I can use this for keeping track of tasks like I'd like to. It was almost Unreal, but they took take 50K off every 1 million you make, so we decided no. Yeah. Plus Godot is open source. Yeah. And I know they're working on making like console stuff a lot a lot more approachable. And I know getting Godot games I've seen them on Switch and Xbox. I don't know about PlayStation. Link to blocks. Yeah, so I'm not today. I'm not doing any straight dev work. Although I will be opening up the project and doing some restructuring of the project's file and folder layouts. Now that we kind of know what the game is, or at least how the elements in the game are going to work, now's the time to sort of do a restructure. Yeah, 2 days ago, that stream, that was a big deal. Got so many systems working, talking together. It was really important. So we're to a point where I really do feel that the only thing left that I know that is a question mark will be enemy is AI, basically. So I really do feel like the rest of this stuff is totally possible. I don't feel so afraid of it anymore. And so I'm feeling pretty good. Well, I mean, I suppose the way I can handle this in Obsidian is to just say to do, doing, done. And then I can just literally just make my to-do list. Okay. Pretty straightforward. Then we get an outline here. Also straightforward. And then these are collapsible. And I suppose this is another way I can do this scheduled. Yeah. So I have some options. So let me look at my original outline. We're going to open this on the side here. This was my original sketch of what I thought, all the moving elements that I thought about when I first started looking at the game and going, here's how I think everything would work. So the save file format's working itself out, really, because of how I'm building things out. So that's not really anything I actually even need to kind of think about. Huh. So that's nothing. This is what I'm working on right now. Yeah, Hella, I was thinking about. So you're just up last night working on this plan. That's why you're so sleepy right now. You just woke up. Aren't you further in the future than me too? What is your problem, man? You got something you need to see a doctor about. Hang on a second, Mike. Chicago time. That's nice. So whose game is it? Like whose idea is it? What's the genre? Buddy Graham and I. Let me do my refactor. Or it's not really refactor, it's restructure of our file, our folders and our files and all this stuff. But what genre? What genre? You got to tell me. Or is it something that's not describable? I guess you could call this one a platform puzzler save the day adventure so far. Okay. Okay. Think about this. We've got the files that describe the what I'm calling the data structures of our actors and jobs. This all goes together. So if we make now they're not, they are resources by definition, but so will the save files that we make out of them. Now one is, now see, I'm using the term data structure, but it's my understanding that data structure is a bit more low level than the way I'm using it. Data structure is really like a dictionary or an array, but not so much. Right. Not so much what I'm doing. So it's more of a data model. There we go. So that's much more accurate. So we'll make a folder, call it models, and I guess it'll be data models. So data models, and then we'll throw actor, and we'll throw and guess what just moved to the top of the to-do list? Yep. Make a solid yet condensed description. Yeah, you got to have your elevator pitch. That's a good way to check when you start changing things. I guess that would be a good way to go. You know what? This is going to make it hard to even pitch this game. Which could be good or bad. I mean, what's the elevator pitch for Tetris? It's a block clearing game. Doesn't sound very interesting. Tetris has the most, because Tetris like is a pure representation of the game's data layer, right? I was thinking about this. It's like a literal representation of the data in the game, and it's always the player's mistake. The design of the game is such that it always feels like it's your mistake. It's you versus yourself. That's another like thing that makes it so like a perfect game. And there's just like so many different elements to it. The tension comes from your choices, not from anything else necessarily, depending on the speed of the game and everything. It's really interesting, really fascinating. So stages is also literally going to be the data. So we have the data models, and then we're going to have the data. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the data models into the game folder, and then we're going to create a folder called data. And this is going to be the things that we create and save that are made by that are based off the data model itself. Yeah. The pump stopped working, but it did collect some things, but not a lot. It's because of the hose. It actually needs to be above the pool line in order for it to work. This one, because of how it is. Yeah, she's good to get in. How's it going, Obsidian? Story editor. I guess we'll put it in game. Cancel. So what have I broken? What's broken? Let's find out. So we have the test area now. Find out. A character is not a valid type. So let's open up battle system. Game. Singleton battle system. Let's just do a search. A character. So this is now called a actor. Actor. Yeah, I hope you guys are doing good. All right, so we're back in business. So I'm not going to be doing any like real coding right now. Suffice to say, we have a turn order going. We have this thing called the clock tick working properly based off our character speed. And we do have an attack working as well that will apply. Well, it won't apply damage, but it will get a damage number. And it is using the character, a ton of all of the elements of our data structure. What I'm calling data structure is really a data model. The model of what is the actor, what is its equipment, what is its job, what are its abilities, all that stuff coming together finally in this big culmination of like, okay, everything's working, right? So that's really exciting. And so now that I'm to this point, it is turning into, what are we talking about? Cyclical reference. So there's some sort of cyclical reference it's talking about. 88. Let's see. It's fun when you're 20 plus structures deep and it's like a dwarf's mine worth of interconnection logic and you're the dungeoneer. Yeah, it's like a yeah, a little bit of mixed metaphors. It's a bit like doing your own D&D campaign and like constantly changing it to keep your party happy. And then you realize you've created a world that just like makes no sense. You're like, don't think about this too hard because nothing makes any sense. Wasn't that guy a king in the last campaign? Shut up! We're not talking about that. Nobody talks about that. It's like a television series that drops canon because they realized how stupid it was. Like the Zat gun in Stargate. Like, we really shouldn't have made it that you can literally disappear people with it. That was a mistake. So we'll just never do that again. And then that'll be that. Okay. So yeah, so we got better structure. Camera, data models, music, so everything's in this game folder. The data is outside of it. I do feel like assets maybe should be in their own space too. I'm getting sort of my own structure going. That's different than what I've seen other people do. That's the Obsidian code that I ruthlessly stole. What's this node? Okay, this was the test system for my scripting thing. But why is it saying cyclical? And why is it running fine? Check out ability. I don't know why my virus threat protection keeps saying it's finding something. I go and check and it shows nothing. I don't know why it's doing that. A little annoying. It's doing it again. Go over. Nothing. All right, let's do a quick scan. I won't be able to stream for very long today. Not going to see much game dev either. Hey, the error's gone away. Why 4? I don't know. Load up the battle system again. Now the error's gone. WTF? The problem just disappeared. Always a good thing. I was probably in all that moving things around. It just it got a little confused. If you'll excuse me for a second, I'm gonna go. My kids are outside in the pool, and I want to go say hi to them real quick. I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. Sorry about that. Had to go check on the kids really quick. We've got one of those giant pools that you just fill up with water. I know the exact chemical like how much chemical mixture to do for it. And I made a ghetto pool filter pump thing using some pantyhose and a swamp. Basically, it's a swamp pump essentially. And it works. It filters out all the gunk and everything. Oh yeah, soaking wet. But it's not like a real. It's not a real quote unquote pool. It's not a cement pool. It's above ground. It's just one of those giant ones. But I know how to keep it so that it doesn't turn into a swamp. It doesn't literally turn into a swamp. So I treat it just like a pool. But I just do it on an extremely like a shoestring budget. But it's nice. It's nice to have because the pools here shut down once school starts up because it's not a huge community, so there's not enough people to be lifeguards or anything like that during summer season when school's back in session. So, anyways, not one of the California pools. Although I think having a pool in California is a quite a status of wealth right now. And I would imagine, I don't know, when I left, the water bills were set to go up every quarter for 10 years by some ridiculous amount. It was set to go up like 10 or 20% every quarter for 10 years. So that was it for me. I'm like, I'm out. I can't do this. Like I'm doing the math. I'm like, yeah, there's no way. Bye. I broke my back pickaxing all of the grass out of our yard, then landscaping it dry, like as a dry drip system, which is still going. The people who bought it, they still have it. It looks amazing. I did all of it, and everyone was telling me I'm doing it wrong. None of it's gonna work. And you need to do this and you need to do that. And I'm like, no, the drips, like everything's going to go right where the water needs to go. It's going to cost like next to nothing. And they jacked the rates up, right? The reason why I was doing it, because they're going to jack the rates up. And we did it. And I'm so glad we did it because it's like nothing changed to our water bill. So it was nice because like we never got hit by the rate increase. But at the same time, it was like, oh my gosh, like if I have to do all of this just to keep our water bill like zeroed to where it was before, like I don't think we can do this much longer. Starting to have NAM flashbacks. All right. Yeah, so the structure here of the project I'm liking. Let's go ahead and commit what we've done. We'll go over to source control and look at this. We got a ton of stuff here that we got to redo. So we'll go ahead and commit all this. And this is just project restructure. Commit that. Only bummer about this is we lose all of our history of changes when we do stuff like this. I'm sure there's a way in Git not to have that happen. But I don't know what it is, and I'm just one guy. East Coaster here, guzzling water like it's never going out of style. Yeah, I mean, California is literally a desert. If it had stayed agrarian, it would have been fine. But when you increase the population because of the coastal cities, it's a recipe for disaster. It's going to implode because human beings need water. And you're living in an area that literally produces none. So it's not gonna last. I don't know. I don't know. Okay. So I was thinking about this because what I'm doing right now is we're building the battle system. Make light. I'm not, I hope it's clear I'm not making light of it. Or I guess. Oh, not you, your chat. Yeah. Well, I will say that Californians like to make light of Texans and their problems, right? But I get it. I totally get it. Having been in that state, though, I will say that if we're to take that problem seriously, we should take all the other problems seriously as well, if that's the card that's going to be played. Yeah. Right. No, I agree. I know that. That's my point. The real problem with California is it's perfect for agriculture, but it's not good for having tremendously compact like civil structures. Literally because of the water situation. It's untenable. And I think in a way the state knows that because it discourages growth for supposedly one set of reasons, but I really think it's another set of reasons that they won't say out loud. But yeah, we're getting into dangerous political scapes. Let's eject. But if we're gonna, the thing about this is where this comes from, California. This comes from California. We're 50 states. We all work together, right? I see states start to say you can't travel here and you can't do this if you work for the state because of this state's beliefs and this state's whatever and stuff like that. And I think that's a really dangerous thing to start doing. The entire point of the federalization of the country was to prevent that very thing from happening. So, but yeah, I think that, you know, if you take stock of what every state, for instance, I live in Idaho, and where I'm at, the trains are end of lines. You could think of them as end of lines, but they're really the start of lines because a lot of exports come from this state, right? So it's interesting, being that it's a coastal city, just like in Washington, you have a lot of imports coming in through that. So you could say it's the state of California that does that, but you could also say it's the United States that's making that happen. It's interesting, but yeah, I think that there's some hubris there for sure, as well. Because simultaneously, the people of California will complain about the agrarian portion of it taking all the water away. And then, you know, you can say that about the vegetables and all that kind of stuff. So it's like a duality to it. The real problem with you know, like, it's interesting because, like, all this grain gets produced in California and then exported to China. And it costs so much water to do that. So California exports the majority of its water to feed China's cows. Right? So it's like it's weird. But yeah, no, I'm extremely, and having lived in California my whole life until recently, it was extremely frustrating to be able to future see. Like, you start to get old enough and you're like, can see the future, and you're like, wait, these are coming problems. Like getting rid of all the saying no to nuclear energy, for instance, and then being like, well, wait a minute, like the power needs are still going to be there. Where's the power going to come from? And where I was at, they had at the time voted to shut down Diablo Canyon, which was going to eject the last nuclear plant in all of California. And it was a 100-year plant, and it was only operated for almost 30. So you're cutting off 70 years of nuclear power, just because, really. And that's scary to be there and watch that stuff happen and go, okay, well, what's the plan here? Like, if you get rid of that, you're killing an entire city, and you're getting rid of all that income tax. You're getting rid of all the tax, the money, the revenue that you would be getting from the power plant itself. And then suddenly the realization comes in, well, how are we going to pay for these schools in these areas and all that stuff? And it's like, yeah, that's kind of the point. Yeah. I simultaneously, like, I love California, but it also, like, sort of breaks my heart. Yeah. I really feel when I was there, it was around 2012 or something, that everything started to get hyper politicized, and every regular person I would talk to would always be that. And it was pretty it was hard. I'd take my daughter to the park, and like I'd get all these comments about being a man and stuff, and it was just like, this is like, it was weird. I lived in the Central Coast, so I don't know if it was any different elsewhere, but where I was at, it was a very weird, it sucked. It was weird. I always talk about, there was well, cause like I would, like if I went to the park, I'd generally be the only dad there, taking my daughter to the park, and it's partly because of our living structure. No, so there were two major incidents that happened regarding that. But I realized, I was like, okay, is this... See, I don't want to say anything, because I know that everyone is different, you know, and I know that it might be my area that I was in or something. So I don't want to I don't want to step in it. But the biggest one was that I was at a park, and there was I presume some daughter's mother openly talking about like, I don't even know how to say it, but she was just openly insulting, like, it wouldn't even be, I mean, it would be the same as chauvinism, but I don't know what the female equivalent word would be for that. But seeing as I was there, and I was literally like within earshot, and it was being directed at her daughter, it was clear who she was talking about. And it wasn't like I came in there, like I wear colored t-shirts. I don't wear any words on my t-shirts. I don't wear anything on me to like to announce my beliefs or anything like that. I don't openly say anything. I'm talking to my daughter and praising her for going up a ladder or whatever, you know? And it was like just words being said to hurt me because I was there and because I was a man. That's all I can say. It was very clear what was going on, and it was very weird. And it would happen and I felt like I was crazy at first. And I think it was the area. I want to say, I hope it was the area. And then there was the Acorn incident, which I talk about, where And it might have been the time. It might have been the time, and certain things were going on politically. But again, everything, like I said, it felt like when I was there and I tried to talk to people I didn't know, it was like, oh, if I just was on Facebook, I would know exactly what people were going to talk to me about. Like that everything was being fed through certain channels, and that's all anyone was talking about all the time. Whatever was on the feed, it felt like, you know, and I could tell who was plugged in and who wasn't based off of the way the conversation would go almost immediately. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I don't know. I was at the park with my daughter. She was maybe 2.5, and she was playing with a boy who was like 3.5. And this is my acorn story. I don't normally talk about my acorn story to people on the internet. But yeah, for sure. And she was piling up acorns onto this little table thing for the kids in the playground area. And then this boy was like knocking them off, and she was cracking up over it. And then she'd pile them back on, and he would knock them off. And it was like this dynamic, and they were just having fun. And there was a group of moms that were talking to each other, and the boy's mom looked over and saw, and came up to him and grabbed his hands and shook them and said, "No, patriarchy." And I was like, I almost started laughing because I thought she was joking at first. And then I realized she wasn't. And I was like, there's so many thoughts in my head at that moment. I'm like, what? Like, he's 3. And like, but I also like simultaneously my heart broke at the same time because I realized like, damn, this boy's in, like, this is going to be his life. Like, this is his mom. And I couldn't say anything because I was a man. And I was patriarchy, right? So I couldn't like even dare try to correct her because I knew what I would step into if I did that. And so I just like stood there, and I couldn't say like, well, they were like, he was having fun and she was having fun, and like it was just a game, and like there wasn't meanness in his heart or anything. He was just knocking him down because she was laughing at it, and she was putting him up because he was knocking him down. Like, I couldn't say any of that, so I just zip it, and it's like, okay, all right. So, I mean, and I don't know. It could have been the area that I was in. I was in the Central Coast, like I said, so right in between like San Francisco and Los Angeles, the wine country as they call it, where I was at. And I don't know. It just but it sucked because like there'd be like litmus tests. And again, this is not like almost like that's all like almost but this universe kind of way. I don't know what that means, but it was just like I don't know. It's hard to talk about it because I don't want to. It just feels like more and more people just can't like treat people like people, and like that we're just people. Everyone compartmentalizes people into these buckets by just literally just looking at them. And I have a name for that. Like, I have a name for that depending on the bucket you're putting them into, and using that to judge somebody. There's names for it that I call it. But yeah. Yeah. Well, in Orwell in 1984 in 1984 it was the adults who were afraid of the children because the children were party members, and so there's a single party system in his in that novel, and the children were like almost like Hitler Youth, where they could say you did something or said something, and that would be the end of you. So the adults were terrified of the children in that novel. It wasn't the other way around. the teenagers could run rampant on you and stuff, and you couldn't say anything because if you did and you pissed them off, they would, you know. Yeah, yeah. But it's just, it was like, the thing about it is, it was the time, and I don't know if it's the same. It was the time because when I was leaving, it was right at the, like, we were like 2 years away from the election, and that was the thing. It was 2 years away from the election, and everyone's talking about it every fucking 5 seconds. And it's just like, oh my God, guys, can we can we just enjoy the weather together, or like, anything else? I would have raised my hand. That was the other thing. I would tell people where I was thinking about moving and the reasons why, because I was like, I wanted to homeschool and all this stuff. Well, your kid's going to end up being, behind and all this stuff, and all this awful stuff about the places I said I wanted to move to. And I have a problem with the people around the area that I moved to. It's mostly, it's a red state. There's a lot of like stuff about certain things that people will, but here, the thing is that where I'm at least, again, it could be heavily localized. Zilch. Nobody talks about politics here. Nobody. Like, it never, ever comes up. Like, ever. Yeah, it was extremely weird. And it was like, oh my God, she goes to because I would take my daughter to the library, like, playtime thing for toddlers and stuff. And it's like, oh my God, she goes to that, like, and it just makes you like hyper conscious about everything that you're doing. And like, am I going to do something wrong here that someone's going to like blow up on me about? Like, I just like people, like, let's just all be people. I hope I didn't lose you. I don't know if you're still here. Ghost Ribbon. Well, not the kind of life that I wanted to live. And it wasn't, there would be things that I would totally agree about, but there was a lot of hypocrisy that I saw in what people were saying and doing. People like to, where I was at, again, I'm going to be heavily centralized about, I'm not talking about the entire state or anything, but where I was at, people were really loud about what they believed and really low about the actions they would take about the things they said they believed in. And that really bothered me. Like, it got under my skin once I started to recognize it and see it. And people would be really loud about certain things and do those very things they said they didn't like to see as well. And I'm sure I do those same things. But if you're going to lay claim to these big things that they were talking about, then you better serve up. Especially the way they talk about them. It'd be like, if you're gonna say these things about these other people because of this thing that you believe, then you better act what you're saying. And I didn't ever see it. And it's like, okay, you gave $5 to some candidate. Great. Good for you. Well, now you can sleep good. Sorry, I gotta stop. But I love the state. I love the area. I love the people. Like, in general, like, I didn't like what was happening to my hometown. My hometown was turning into an agricultural tourist location. It was becoming heavily, it was clear that the local council there was basically being run by the like, it was very focused on vineyard and wine stuff. They proactively, it's funny because the conservative element there I didn't like either, They preemptively using like with the marijuana stuff, that the law that was being passed, they preemptively blocked a bunch of stuff, that the licensing and all that, so that there could be none of that once the law was passed. And I totally disagreed with that. And the reasoning they gave was they didn't want people coming into town essentially making money doing that. And it was like, oh, heavens forbid somebody take one of these empty industrial buildings and start making money for the city. We don't want that. No. Anyways. Yeah. That was the other thing, because everyone was trying to suss you out when you were there. And anything I would talk, like, because they'd ask you questions and you'd have to answer them. And then they would think that I thought I was one way or another way on the political spectrum, because there's only two sides to every issue, if you didn't know already. There can only be two sides to anything, apparently. But so they just like compartmentalized me into that other side that they hated. And it's like, no, I'm actually not. I'm not over there either. There's an up and a down. You guys don't seem to recognize either. But there's not just left and right. There's north and south. But it is what it is. The thing is I hold. Like, I understand why people think the things they think, and I totally get it, and I don't hold that against them. But while I was there, it wasn't like that. Where I was at. Have you not seen the fanboyism of Xbox v PlayStation? You think you're Nintendo? Heretic. Yeah, there's a lot of that. That's the crazy thing. Like, to get out of the political space, it's like that with that stuff. Like, it's crazy on my Twitter to see these people, and it's like, guys, you're like 40 years old. Why are you talking like a 10-year-old on the playground about this stuff? Like, Jesus. People are crazy about console stuff. Like, and like blasting each other online about like, oh, did you see this tweet they made 10 years ago about the console this, and now it's different, and they think different, and it's like, guys, it's just video games. I'm sorry. But yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. No, and unfortunately, it really came to a blow with some family members in my life where, because they were so into this zeitgeist that they had plugged themselves into, and I'm going to be vague so you can think anything about what they politically thought. I won't even say, because you'll be able to identify this, whether somebody is any political spectrum. But they never really got to understand me politically. They'd always do these quizzing questions, never let me finish saying what I was trying to say. They'd ask me, so it's like, okay, well, I guess I'll say it. Then they'd start to like tremble, get upset, and they thought I thought a bunch of things I never thought. And then they took all of it and they held on to it for years. And then they just used it to like unleash on me and destroy our relationship over stuff I never believed. And I could never break through to them and like explain, like, you don't even know who I am. You're arguing a phantom. Like, this isn't anything that I think. Like, and it's just a shame. It's a shame to watch people destroy relationships over that stuff. And take good people who think things differently than them and turn them into enemies. And to me, a person comes down to, there's a burning car and there's a child in there and you're a parent. What are you going to do? And in that moment, that to me is what determines whether that person is a good person or a bad person. It doesn't matter what what's on their bumper sticker at that point. It matters what they choose to do in that moment. That's all that matters. And that's the kind of stuff that I don't think people are able to separate what is a good person and a bad person versus what they answered to a series of questions because there's something floating in the ether that everyone is presently unknowingly caring about because some system of information that's disseminated to them makes them care about in that given moment. And it's like, I don't know. It's a bummer. That's why I'm on here. I try to avoid all that stuff here. This is my safe space. This is my place where I go where none of that's a thing. All right. So well, if I'm going to send a message to Ghost Ribbon if he's not on here, I'll just apologize. He or she, I don't but just I hope that wasn't upsetting. I hope that, cuz I don't think you guys were necessarily joking either about the whole water thing. But I mean, it is fascinating, regionally speaking, how rapidly. Oh, I'm cutting out on the internet. Is that me? My upstream was really low. So what I was going to say though about the game as a whole. Okay, so we're at a point where we can start testing the battle system and everything like that. And I was like, okay, well, the move to 3D means that I have to have enemy movement and all this crazy stuff going on that I'm not ready to do for it's like at first I was thinking, oh man, as soon as we have stuff on the battlefield, I got to have AI going and all that. And I realized, well, no, not really. All I really need to do is get movement going. And then I'll just play every single person's turn, including the enemy. So that is something that I'm thinking about doing sooner rather than later, which is to move away from this system I have here where we've got a list of people on the battlefield, and it's just a list because the game is so, I mean, we're talking tactics, right? It's so driven in spatial things that that I think that we can actually start working on getting these things on the screen, and I'll just control enemy and good guy, however you want to put it. All at once. And then once I know the movement is working and the positional stuff is working, then I can go, okay, now we can start working on AI. And so that's what I feel. That's what I feel like I should start doing, but in a weird way, it means that I'm going to basically be back to nothing happening for a while on the stream while I work on getting movement going. But I almost think it won't take too long. I'm not 100% sure, but I don't think it's actually going to take that much work to get that going. Yeah. Colin, how's it going? What? First time in the stream? How are you doing? I'm gonna double check. Yep. Colin, I ran into Colin's stream. A few days ago, I was working on some stuff, and he's making a Lemmings clone right now in Godot, and making some really good progress. And recommend checking out his channel. Um, but he's a fan of tactics as well. So Obsidian, to answer your question, right now what I've got is just a really basic representation of turn orders, and we can add characters to the battlefield, and right now it's really just represented in this list. Just stocking it for tactics info. So I have the turn orders working properly. The timer's going, and I've got attacks going where you basically just have a list of the other players on the field and can attack them. This is not how tactics works at all, because the tactics you have to be physically next to the character in order to actually be able to attack them, right? And so that's a big key stuff into all this. So I have this going so I can test physical attacks. It doesn't care where the person is, although in an actual like tactically driven game, you would need to be next to the player in order to hit them, right? So what I'm saying is, now that I have the battle system, I know that I can get it talking to the data models that I have for character, equipment, jobs, abilities, that I do think that it might be time to go and bring it all into a 3D representation of the game. And that instead of worrying about programming the AI right away, what I'll do is I'll set it up. So what I'll do is I'll set it up so that I'll play every single turn, including the enemy side. So I don't have to worry about programming the AI right away. I'll just pretend, and I'll be like, oh, I'm the AI guy now, and I'm going to move over here, and I'm going to do this thing. And I'll do it that way so that I don't have to worry about doing the AI, and I can just focus on 3D movement and integrating the battle systems more and more and more. And also getting the camera rotation going around the pixel art and all that stuff going as well. So yeah, I think that's where to head to. And I think that what that'll mean is for the next week, it's going to be me getting those things all connected together as well. But I'm wondering if it'll pay dividends if I don't do that right away, and I still focus on just getting the data model and the battle system code working together really tightly. And it would just essentially be blind to any spatial necessary things, so that I can just test the systems more. But at the same time, I really feel like I do need to have that spatial stuff going sooner rather than later. Yeah. It's just I really don't want to do things like getting the highlighting going on the board and all that stuff. I feel like it's 6 of one, half a dozen of another. Okay. Yeah, Colin, let me show you the so this is the game facts that I've been using. Close this out. Battle Mechanics Guide version 6.5. I don't know if this is the one that you've come across, but this is the one that let me go to, right now I've been living into the basic game flow area. Yeah, exactly. And I can't program a lot of the abilities, so it's because it's so conditionally driven about space. Right? So what I've done most recently is I've gotten the phases, what they're calling the phases of battle here, although I think of them slightly differently than they present them here. But I have each of these phases firing, and right now we're only doing the active battle phase that everything stops on. Because I haven't even bothered integrating status effects, or charging mechanics yet. But these things are happening, and we are able to attack, which means we have abilities working. We have hit percents based on physical stuff working. But right now the game just assumes you're always attacking from the front, which is actually, you know, not exactly helpful to a lot of the other stuff. So what I could do initially, yeah, there's, let me show you a different section here that might, this is the stuff, the stat stuff. This was the key, these numbers here especially. This concept of raw HP in a class multiplier divided by this number here was key to me understanding how the leveling stuff works in the game. Yeah, exactly. So if you recognize the calcs, I knew if I showed you that, you'd be like, oh, okay. Yeah, and then this is the distribution of SPA and MA based off of male or female or monster. And I can show you a little bit of the data models themselves really quick. If we go to actor, this is the big one. And this has a lot of the calculations for, like, this is when you set the gender, this determines those numbers. These are random range between certain amounts to generate your raw MP and HP. And then I've got JP and XP leveling working with signals coming out from the actor resource. I'm calling it actor. I'm thinking of the battle area as the stage. And I have to do a lot of weird things with emitting signals because of how resources work and what I need to be able to do from them. So that's for the actor, and then we have an equipment data model here, which probably is still going to have a few changes to it. And then we have, oh no, that's for equipped items. Actually, this isn't for equipment. So that's for equipped items on the actor. So that's like a sub resource. And then this is the equipment model. So for equipment, it's really straightforward. You can create a piece of equipment and then give it AP, MP, move, jump, SP numbers that will change those values based on whether or not they're equipped. And then jobs I have here. And we have a job. The jobs and the equipment are actually really straightforward. It's the abilities that are going to be the most dynamic. They are not engine agnostic. It's all based around Godot's resource. But I don't imagine it would be. I think in some ways it would be less difficult to get it into a different engine. It was more about getting the understanding what everything was doing. First, that was where I was like, I don't understand how the systems work. So figuring that out. And then, so yeah, each of these resources can be saved into their own like class resource, or I should say job resource. And this jobs resource is to track what jobs you've done, what job points you've earned in, and what abilities you've unlocked in it. That's true. It'd be easy to do that or put it in a JSON. There are things about the numbers that you need to clamp, like they can't go over a certain amount and things like that. That you have to keep track of. And then yeah, so abilities is this right here. And this is the only thing that I need to do that's a little different. I have to subclass an ability because we're going to have a bunch of different functions that I don't have listed yet. So I'll have to subclass the ability, and then in the subclass, that's where the actual juice of it is. So like, for instance, sword is the only ability I've ever subclassed yet. But in the get damage portion of it, we're overriding the parent get damage, and we're taking and we're going, okay, what's your equipped weapon? What's its weapon power? And then we return a value of the character's physical attack times their weapon power to return the damage that the sword will do. And then we initialize some of the values that we want it to be that will make it show up in specific areas. And then what we get out of that is, for instance, like what I was saying with right now, the only job I've actually saved, if we go over here, is the Squire. And the jobs themselves are actually really straightforward, because all you do is you say what job is required for it, what level you have to be at in order to get this job, what level the required job has to be at in order to get it, and then its primary ability, and then you just start adding in an array of resources that's the abilities that job has. Yeah. My Windows security keeps saying there's a threat, and there is none. I don't know what it's talking about. So yeah, so I'll state my biggest concern right away if we're starting to go into the 3D and I start working on that. It is really just the highlighting for area of effect and for where you can do something. I've never done 3D, so I have no idea how that would even work. I mean, I have an idea. I could theoretically take the tops of all of the surfaces that I need to highlight and then compose those into their own thing, and then draw the highlight over that with like the slight transparency and or some sort of shader thing. But I've never, like I said, I've never done anything like that. It also means that I would need to start going into Blender and doing things in that eventually as well, because the heights are so important. I've said in the past, really all I need is a half block besides a full-size block initially, just to represent the mechanical side of things. But obviously, the presentation you want it to be a little bit, you want it to be pretty. Yeah. Go for it, man. We can keep each other going. Colin actually sent me some really useful links for AI stuff as well that I'll be taking a look at once I get to that point. I don't think I will need anything more complicated than a state machine. The camera is really genius, and that was an idea from Obsidian. So all we're doing is we're putting the camera in its own spatial, and we're locking it to the spatial, and so we can center the spatial wherever we want the camera to be. So, and then we rotate the spatial, and it acts as a gimbal for the camera. One thing I found out too with the camera, this is like key to the truly what's the word we're looking for? So it's an orthogonal perspective that's drawn in a, there's actually two possibilities in tactics. You can rotate the camera or bring it up or down, and one is called isometric and the other has a different name. I forget what it's called, but the key to that was this rotation degrees here. It's 35.264. That's the exact angle your camera needs to be pointing downward to get the isometric angles exactly right. When you're doing orthogonal projection. But anyways, I think that's where I'm at. I think I need to just make the decision. And Obsidian, I trust a lot. He's saying it's half of one, 6 of one, half a dozen of another. So it really doesn't make any difference. I think for the sake of the stream and people's entertainment, then, that I found that for having different nodes for pitch, yaw, and roll for the camera simplifies a lot of the movement rotation code. Yeah, it does. That's a good idea, actually. We could just keep that idea going. But yeah, so far this has been working. I've already mapped the buttons and everything. I could actually, do I have the controller set up? So I have my character moving in random spots. If I change the defaults, if I run this scene, is it still going to work? It's still going to work. So I have rotation. The character picks a random place to go to. You can see it's like he's blending into the environment. So I think that has something to do with the draw order or some sort of heights thing. But I think what I'll do then, it makes sense to me then to jump into the 3D side of things starting this week. I'll start doing that. And it's going to be a lot of me banging my head against the wall for a while, but that'll be good because Obsidian's going to be there watching me. Please. And he'll be able to help me out. And I think that, you know, for people watching, I think for them to actually see something that looks like a game will be good because I've been going for a month and most of the time my stream has been looking like this. So that would be good to be back to like having something that looks like a game to show people. So I think that's what we'll be doing for sure. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna hit up and start doing. Because there's, like I said, there's so many of these elements here that revolve around distance and stuff like that that I have to get movement going. So the highlighting in the game that we're copying is it's on they're selecting I feel that I streamed Dev trying to fix physics bugs for 4 hours today. That's the worst. It's the worst when you come into a stream thinking that you're going to do one thing and you end up stuck on something. Like that actually happened to me for an hour on one of my streams not too long ago, where I was just trying to dynamically or programmatically set a theme to switch out to show the highlight. And like, I just couldn't, it just took me a while to do it. And finally got it. It was really interesting to see everybody on the internet have all these ways they were doing it, and it didn't seem right. But so to answer your question, Obsidian, the way that Tactics does it, as far as I can tell, is it takes the mesh, and I believe I'm using the correct terms. Again, this is 3D stuff, so I don't really know the terms to use. But it only looks at it, like somehow determines what of the polygons are like top facing, and then it applies a glowing, like and by glowing I mean that really all that's going on is the transparency of a color, red, blue, that kind of thing, is going in and out of being its opacity is going up and down basically to show this is like the area, right? But it's not highlighting the entire block. It's only highlighting the top of the surface. But for now, I would be fine if it was just the entire block. So I don't know if that means, because we're using a grid map, and I can't do anything on an individual level in a grid map. So does that mean that for the elements I want to highlight, do I break those elements out of the major grid map and make like a highlight grid map that I put them into, that I can then have my mesh library that has that version of the effect, or that then on that mesh library I can then apply why is my brain farting? A shader on. That's the kind of stuff I'm not 100% sure about. But the simplest solution would be to use two grid meshes, one for your actual geometry and one for your highlight geometry. So yeah. And then whenever I want to highlight, I just take those values and then swap them. Like I remove them from the one grid map and put them onto the other, so they're not like fighting over who's drawing over who. Then you can turn on and off the cells in the highlight grid as you want. Yeah. Okay. Okay. I mean, I buy that. Yeah, because then theoretically I can use I can actually make a shader that then does look at the vertices and finds the top ones, so to speak, and only applies an effect on those, right? Maybe? I don't know. I think if you extract the geometry from the actual tile mesh, you can do whatever you want with that at runtime. Yeah, so what I'm using is a grid map in Godot, and that gives you essentially the same kind of thing you'd get with a tile map, but for 3D. So, you give it a mesh library, and then you can draw things in a grid in 3D. I don't know if you messed around with this, Colin. So like here, this grid map here, I can change the floor that I'm on, and then I can grab my block here and I can just start drawing it in. And then if we rotate it, we see it. But the thing is that it's using this, it's fixed on the mesh library that it's using. And so if you try to apply effects to the grid library or the grid map, the effect is going to apply to all elements in it. So the easiest way that Obsidian and I are talking about is to have essentially two grid maps, and then when we have the cells that we want to have highlight, we simply remove them from the one grid map and put them in the other grid map in the same spots. And then on that grid map, we would have either the mesh library would represent highlighting, or maybe doing a shader. Why remove them? Well, I don't know. I figured I would have to for drawing, but I don't know. Can they? Is it that I can put one in front of the other, and then, because again it's 3D, I don't know about draw orders or anything. So if they literally take up the same 3D space and I have them in the right order in our scene tree, will they just draw over the other one? Is that how it works? Keep the main grid alone, and in your highlight grid, turn them on. I've never touched anything in 3D in Godot, says Colin, but if you have the mesh or tile, you should be able to get the vertices and generate another mesh just for the highlight with shaders, etc. Yeah, I believe that's possible. I think stacking grid maps should lurk. At least that's what I do in 2D. Yeah. So Obsidian says the thing about 3D... ... The node order is not quite as important as with 2D. Are you telling me there's a Is there like a Z layer for it or like a draw order? It's about the size of the models. For instance, if you have a 1 by 1 by 1 cube, okay, and you want to highlight, then you need to make one that's like, the highlight model may need to be 1.1 by 1.1 by 1.1. So if I do that, will that change the or any size slightly larger than the original? In 3D, it will only draw the one closest to the camera, right? Excluding transparent stuff. So Obsidian, let me ask you that. Let me ask you this. If, let's say I just chose 1.5, right? Is that going to mess the grid up so that they're not literally like not quite lining up? And that if I did 1.5, that would literally be a half size larger? There isn't technically any draw order in 3D. Right, because it's got to use, does culling or whatever it's called, right? It's 3D, so it's drawing, whatever's in front is what is technically drawn because it's 3D. Could be very small, different though, like 1 point. Yeah. Well, and I wonder if I can set the cell size, but also change the grid to be different than the cell size. I remember doing something like that in Unity. Okay. All right. Well, the point is that we can do it. It should be possible. So, yes, but you may want bigger. You'll hit a float point inaccuracy with too many decimal places. Imagine if that's true. If you're too low, you'd end up with like weird fuzzy look to it, like zebra stripes almost. Yeah. Okay. Well, I gotta say, guys, I know that I'm not doing any dev today. I appreciate just hanging out and talking. And I do like being able to kind of formulate what it is I'm going to be working on. And I appreciate having other devs in the chat to be able to talk out like good ideas, bad ideas in everyone's experience. And so it's like I'm gaining like 20 years of experience without having it when it comes to some of this stuff. The zebra striping is called Z fighting. Okay. Okay. It's when two faces are on top of each other and there's nothing in the system that tells which is supposed to render first. Okay. Z fighting is actually proof that 3D has no draw order. I will say here's the bigger picture. I'll show you if I had a design document for the game. Let me just show you the Final Fantasy Tactics Japanese guide. This. Let's find an image of the cover. A good one. These are some crappy ones. Well, this right here, this is the look I'm going to go for. I've mentioned it before, but what I want to have the game look like is that it's folded, that the battlefield is papercraft, that it looks like folded origami, that the block structure is not complicated beyond what you could fold in paper, and that the look of the paper that would make up the blocks of the battlefield will look like it'll be watercolored. I'm going to do the UV wrap. Is that what it's called? And I'm going to take in and actually print print the UV wrap out, and then have my wife watercolor on watercolor paper and then scan that in as the texture. And then hopefully eventually I'll be able to make a shader that gives that like fleck look that's in milled paper to make it look like paper. The characters themselves, I want them to look like they're pieces of paper folded up. I will animate them, and I'm thinking they're going to be 3D modeled, but then flat projected onto a sprite. So we'll still have that same look that Tactics had originally. And it's going to look like a diorama of a battle. So that it looks like you're at some fair or some like at a museum that has a recreation of a battlefield, a famous battle. I think you're underestimating the complexity of UV unwrapping. Okay. Well, that's good to know. So we're gonna experiment with it nonetheless. So, but this is the look that I want to try and hit. I love that little chicken there for the chocobo. But this look is beautiful, and I really like it. And this is kind of like the mark that I want to hit. So to make it look like a recreation of a battle, essentially, that you're like watching it. So Obsidian says if you want that look, a lot of this is in with soft lighting too. You better hire a 3D artist. Okay. That may be very complex. We'll see. I mean, I don't doubt that you're not wrong about that. But I do think that a lot of this comes down into the shading, the light itself, and how that works. Especially if you don't know Blender. Well, again, like I said, we're dealing with sharp angles because we're going to keep that simplistic block-like structure of the original Tactics game. Yeesh, it's all about the light. That's not simple either. Yeah, I imagine not. But I mean, I like, obviously this is flat lighting. So, that's not what we want. Also, textures get very complicated when you want it to look like a material. Yeah. Yeah, I understand that as well. That's why I think it needs to be helped with some sort of shader helping boost that a little bit. But that's the like dream look, right? That's like what I want to try and hit. But in the meantime, yeah, for learning Blender, I think I'm actually going to have to start doing that very shortly. All materials are shaders, honestly. So I guess we can download Blender now just to get ready. Go. Is there a particular version I should use? Am I doing myself wrong if I use the one they're showing here? And let's go ahead and get the docs. Support. And we're going to bookmark this. And what does that look like in our bookmark? Okay. We'll download it for Windows. Should I check and see if it's in the Windows Store? Is that silly of me? It's open source, so it probably isn't. So I'll get that downloading. It is. All right, let's see what version it shows. Doesn't show the version. Oh, down here. Release date. Oh, goodness. There's like a ton of different ones. What are we on here? Doesn't show the version number on the... Shows the release date, though. There's no way that's this one. Yeah, it's definitely not. Let me get the one from... I don't want to dox myself. I'm starting it from the Windows Store. I just like the idea that it'll just update itself without having to have a million things running in my system to be able to check for updates. Every individual programming having its own tool to check for updates. I can't stand that. That's one reason why I do like downloading things from the Microsoft Store, because then it's part of Windows Update, and it's not like a ton of little things running constantly that I have to hunt down and stop. In that case, get it from Steam. Okay. I do have Steam. Steam it is. Oh. Hang on. Where's Steam? There's Steam. It's going to ask me to sign in because I barely opened Steam. Hang on. So I'm migrating from LastPass to Bitwarden, because LastPass keeps getting their butts hacked. I don't like that. I don't trust, and it's not, I just don't trust it. Well, I don't mind that, except that every single program installs, like on Windows, I'll say on Windows, every version on every program on Windows that you download and install manually puts in its own little secret hidden thing that's running even if the app's not running, that's like, am I out of date? Am I out of date? Am I out of date? And all those things start to add up, slowing down your startup times and eating up a little bit more of your RAM. And, I just don't like that. But yeah, okay. We'll see if Blender does that, but it's really hard to check. And it's not every single program, but it's quite a few of them. So I'm just going to install it from the horse's mouth, as it were. This grease pencil thing is really cool. I saw somebody doing a video on that. And I'll bookmark the video you sent, Obsidian. What? That's not it. Water. Oh, that's a John Oliver. Who sent that? Was that you? Where is it? It's over here. Let me get it. Simple modeling. That wasn't simple modeling. That's John Oliver. What? When I'm trying to open that simple modeling tutorial, that's what I'm getting. All right, there's Blender. Now let's see. What's the deal here? Let's start blending. Select with left or right. I don't know. Left? Ooh, deep gray. Ooh, I like deep gray. Maya. Minimal dark. Ooh, I like that one. Modo. Ooh. No! Ah, have I died? Okay, we'll do. I like minimal dark versus dark. Dark's there's too many. I like the minimal dark. Let's see. In Modo, was that another one? I don't like the orange. So we're gonna go minimal dark. English, yes. Shortcuts, Blender. Getting started, manual. Is this built in? Nope. Okay. All right, so we have Blender. And then we have this. Don't Rickroll me, you son of a... Okay, we're good.
Change the texture, and I've also enabled this cavity look, which I get a lot of questions.
Okay, so first of all, I'm going to make a comment. I hear a European accent. That's already a good sign. Anytime, any like, that's why I like Godot, because it's very international. It's like, that's a good sign.
It's about, and I've set it to both types here and pull these sliders up to the top. I usually like to model this because it makes it easier to see. If I go tab into edit mode and select faces, I can, let's select all of them and do UV reset here. You can see that the texture is just like any normal texturing map, but I'm using this in a very specific way.
Okay, so well, let's get a grease pencil. Configuring help system. Tooltips. Oh wow, there's scripting. You can do scripting in Blender. Tutorials. Okay, so user interface. So I'm not gonna. I'll probably be reading this offline. I don't want to use up our time here.
On the left side here, I press S to scale, and then I press 0 on the keyboard.
I find that I tend to learn this stuff better just reading the manual. If they have good documentation, I do better that way than watching someone else use it. I find also with this kind of stuff, they'll refer to shortcuts and things, and the app will have changed by the time the video is popular.
And that brings it down to a single infinitely small dot, and then I can place this anywhere on the texture and colorize. And I use this all the time to colorize my objects. So I'm just going to run through a lot of the stuff. Maybe you'll pick up a thing or two that you could find useful. And some of the most common one, of course, is E to extrude, which I do all the time. Hold the shift select to select multiple ones. Another one to combine with E is S for scaling, of course. E to extrude, S to scale. That's the thing. Another one is I to inset. So I and then E to extrude. Combine those. Very useful.
Holy smokes.
And if you hold, if you have multiple faces selected and press I, and then you press I again, then you swap between individual faces. You can see that at the top, and non-individual. And if I press E to extrude, you can extrude them. And sometimes you don't want to extrude it like this. So another useful, if I cancel that one, Control Z. So instead of E, I'll do Alt E. And then I'll do extrude along face normals instead. And that makes it possible to just scale it in the normal direction of the face.
Yeah.
If you want to do multiple things at the same time, in many places, I to inset, individual, very good, and Alt E, extrude along face normals. Sometimes you want to also extrude individual.
So here's something I will say too, because I'm only gonna. There's not too many complicated things I'm gonna need to be doing with the blocks. I wish I had some Legos with me right now because I could show what I.
So if I hold the Alt key and click on this edge, very useful too. It selects all the way around like this. Works in any direction like this. As long as you click. Many people try to click on the face here, and it doesn't always get the direction that you want. So make sure that you click on the edges. That selects it all the way around. And here, if I do Alt T and extrude, it'll do like a big thing all the way around it. So sometimes you want to do these individually. So I'll do Alt. So
I have a question. Can I set things up so that there's like bounds where I couldn't extrude beyond a certain point? As he's saying the word extrude. They do have key maps, so I might want to print this out. And shortcuts.
T, and then you can do extrude individual faces instead. This is useful if let's say I wanted to create a cogwheel or something here. So another useful thing I do, a lot of useful stuff here, is select a face and do Shift D to duplicate it, and then right click, snap it back.
Okay, that's
And
probably
if I
how
want
I'll
to do
be doing a
cogwheel
lot of the
here, here's
manipulation
a short
then.
trick as well. I often right click on a face and do,
Because that's how accurate I'm going to need to be. Because I'm going to be dealing with, really everything is going to lock into points that are half, quarters, or thirds. The way I'm imagining doing this.
subdivide to split it, and then I've enabled here in preferences. This is a bit all over the show, so take it for what it is. I've enabled two things mainly. It's not loop tools, and I've also got auto mirror here.
Don't question me.
And with loop tools, you get access to these things here. So when I've got this selected, I subdivide.
But no, it'll seriously. So if you think about a square having what is it? 2 triangles on each side, right? And 6 sides on a square. Let's say 2 times 6 is 12 triangles, right? So really, there's going to be it just depends.
Click on circle here, and you could, of course, you could just add a cylinder instead, but I find a quick workflow in low poly modeling is I'll just do Shift D, snap it back, right click, subdivide, and then I do circle, and then I can scale it and extrude, and then inset. And now I hide individual, so I press I again just to get the uniform one. And then
So is subdivision Blender works best with quads? Yes, I'll pretend like I know what that is. Subdivision is creating more polygons to mess with, I presume.
E to extrude.
A 4-edged face. 4-edged face.
So if you wanted to create cylinders like,
So it has 4 polygons to a face. Anytime you add new faces, edges, etc., it's more polygons. Right.
this. And if I wanted to do the cogwheel, let's have this, and instead of multiply selecting all of these, you can press
Triangle is a 3-edged face. 4-edged face.
L when you're hovering over something, and that'll select that, and it'll toggle it.
Quad
You can do
is 4 edges, aka a rectangle. Well, what were you saying? Blender works best with quads.
Shift L to deselect as well. So L to select that one. I'll do E to extrude, and then to learn what we did to make the cog, double click A to deselect. I hold the Alt key and click on this one to do a loop select all the way around. And then here we could do Alt E, and now I do extrude.
Okay. So I don't want to learn Blender on stream, I don't think. But I'm going to like get a knowledge of it, and not everything needs to be a quad, but it's cleaner to work with quads. So here's my plan for this week. We're going to move over to 3D. I'm going to be learning Blender in the background, not on stream. I won't be using Blender during the weeks that I'm getting the 3D stuff going with the movement and all that. But I will be doing those things, and then once I feel like I have a better understanding of Blender, I'll pop that out, and then all the Blender snobs will start showing up on the stream, right? They'll be like, yeah. And then I'll be like, oh, tell me what I'm doing wrong. And hopefully they'll be able to help me out. And yeah. Okay. So is there am I going to get into trouble if initially I'm just working with like what they would call gray boxes or something? Where I'm not doing any texturing right away, and I'm just working on shapes.
Individual faces, and then you can scale them. But see, now when I scale, it goes all the way in, and it's because the default scaling is through to the median. If I press period on the keyboard, you can switch here from median to individual origins. So now if I press scale, it scales them along its individual origin there instead. So this could be a useful way to do
you can say
cogwheels.
models without materials.
If I press L to select the link, because I'm still in the same cube object here, that could be a little bit confusing for some too, but I often do a lot of the stuff.
Okay. All right, that's the plan. I gotta go make some. We're gonna make. I'm gonna barbecue, and I got a new remote thermostat thingy majiggy that I'm really excited about. So I'm gonna go. Normally I do a raid, but I don't know that we have enough people to do that with. Is anybody streaming? Are you guys all streaming? Simple models and plain colors can get you a long way already. Yeah. So yeah, I won't be focused at all on texturing or anything. It's mostly getting the shapes right. Again, with tactics, I do want to keep the simple polygons, the simple shapes of the game, where we're dealing with, again, something that should be possible to make by folding and maybe having to glue a little bit of paper together in order to create the shapes of the battlefield. This is a bad example. We need something that's this might work. It's all blurry. Hey, come here, Orion. Come here. Oh, he's naked. He's topless. I don't know we can show his nipples. But we'll show the cute baby. Hi. Say hi. Say hi to everybody. It looks like you've been eating watermelon or something. Strawberries? You've been eating strawberries? Yeah? You want to say hi to everybody? Hi. Good job. Hi. Okay. I was just ending the stream right now to start. I just got some strawberry in my mouth from kissing you. Yeah. Yeah. I love you. All right, let's start barbecuing. You want to barbecue with me? Colin says hi. Says hi. All right, let's go, little man. You're gonna ruin my mic. Yeah, you are. Okay. I gotta give you back to mommy so I can close everything out. Okay. You're messing it. Okay. Okay, I gotta. Are you gonna talk? You gotta say something. I'm technically breaking Twitch's TOS right now. Too young to be on Twitch. I'm gonna get banned. All right. Here we go. This is a good example. So yeah, here you can see like the flat angle of one of the blocks. And so just a lot of sharp angles. I'm not going to be doing like, oh, it's a rock, so we're going to have all these bumps and like, you know, that'll be in the texture. Again, I want it to look like folded paper. That's my excuse for why I'm not going to go complicated with the modeling. So, I'll see you guys. I'll be getting started on 3D movement and everything starting this week. So hopefully I'll see you guys around. Everyone stay safe. Much love. Peace. And see you later. Bye. How do I stop the stream? There we go.